everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. Today, I'm coming to you from a very cloudy and kind of chilly day in Western Washington. So today's a good day for me to wear my moonset tee. I've talked about it in a couple of different episodes, so if you're curious about that, take a look at that. I'll put a link up there. But this particular version I knit with a yarn that has alpaca in it, so it's a bit of a warmer knit, which is great for transitional seasons. So today I think the high is like 66 degrees and it's been a little bit chilly. So it was a great day to break this out, and I'm hoping that there's enough light to where you can see what I'm filming today, but we're gonna try it out and see. So today I don't have a ton of progress on the projects that I shared last week. I've been working on them, but it's been kind of a crazy week. There's been a lot going on, so I didn't feel like there was enough to show you guys to where it would actually be interesting, because it's just like a little bit of progress on both of my tops. So instead, I thought it would be really fun to bring out all of my languishing whips or works in progress. I had sort of mentioned a couple episodes ago that I had some works in progress just kind of hiding away in my deep stash, and a few of you mentioned that you'd love to see them. So I thought today would be a great opportunity to talk about that. Not only just to be able to share that with you guys, but also to kind of light a fire under me to maybe actually like either rip them out or work on them and finish it up. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show them in order from oldest to most recent. It's funny, the older ones that I found, there's one I didn't even remember that I had, and so it was kind of a bit of a walk down memory lane, and this is great because, yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but I think the older ones for sure, there's no way that they're coming back from where they're at. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I've got all my bags lined up here in order. We are going to start with my oldest one in the smallest bag because that's how little progress I made on this. The first work in progress that I've got to show you is from 2018, and just by throwing this in here, it's already tangled. This is a good sign. There we go. All right, we are untangled. We're good to go. I'm going to scooch up because I feel like I'm a little bit far today. All right, so today's first work in progress is the Corrie Sweater, and that is by Sue Gleave. I got it from this Knit Picks book. It's called Cable Couture. Now, I looked it up, and you can buy the pattern standalone on Knit Picks for $4.99, but you can also get it in this book, and this is what the sweater is supposed to look like. That is the cable, which is a really beautiful cable, and then this was the sweater. Now, you knit this bottom up in the round, and it is in the round, right? Yes, it is. I plan to heavily modify this in terms of length. Like you'll see in that picture is quite long, and I wasn't gonna make it nearly that long, so I had to do some math to figure out my modifications. I think at this point, like I said, I started this in 2018, and the notes on my Ravelry page left a lot to be desired. But I think I lined this up at the time with one of my favorite sweaters and just kind of measured how much length I thought I wanted up to the armpit, and that was what I was going off of. I was using the recommended yarn for this pattern, which is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in the color Sapphire Heather. It's a gorgeous color. This color is stunning. This is a worsted weight yarn. I should also mention, before I get into the yarn and everything, the finished measurements for this sweater, it ranges from 37 inches to 67.75 inches for a finished bust circumference. And it comes in 6 sizes, and those sizes are meant to have about 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. This was recommended to be knit in a US 6, which is a 4mm needle. And I believe I used the recommended needles, recommended yarn, I got gauge, that was all fine. I remember that why I stopped knitting this was actually because, and this is a personal preference, so if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I actually found the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes to be a little bit scratchy for my taste. This was around the time that I discovered that I might actually be a little more sensitive than most to wool. Like, I can wear a lot of wools and I'm okay, but I do think I'm a little bit sensitive to if it's got more of the rustic quality. It's interesting, and I'm actually curious because, like I said, I knit this in 2018, so I've had this yarn for a long time, and in recent podcasts, I've seen several people talk about using Wool of the Andes and talking about how it's a really great workhorse yarn. I think it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And so I'm curious if maybe it's a little softer now, or if I'm just sensitive, and that is entirely possible. It's possible that I'm just a little more sensitive, but as I was working with it, I just felt like it was making me a little bit itchy. And while it wasn't unbearable, I mean, this isn't like an Icelandic wool or nothing like that, nothing at all. It definitely has a toothiness to it. And I just kind of lost steam when I realized that, this sweater is meant to be worn, pretty close. It doesn't have a ton of ease, so it's not like, I mean, I could definitely wear a cami under it, but I was just thinking about how the arms might bother me, and I don't know, I started to just get concerned that this was so itchy that I wasn't going to enjoy wearing it, and this was a lot of cabling to do if I wasn't going to wear it. So I tucked it away because I remember thinking, I'm gonna come back to this, give it some time, try out some more yarns, and see what I want to do. And it is a shame. Like, I actually think this color is absolutely gorgeous. Like, that it's quite a dynamic blue. And I think this would look really good on my skin tone. I will say, feeling it, I don't think I will continue, just because I do still have that same concern that it would be a little bit scratchy for me. But I think at some point I would still like to knit this pattern up. And honestly, it's not like I knit so much to where it's a giant waste of my time. Like, clearly this is what, 2-3 inches at most. So yeah, I would say in terms of the pattern itself, I think everything was fine as far as I had gotten. I didn't have any issues with the pattern, and I still think it's quite pretty. I just might have to do a different yarn. So if you've used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, let me know how you feel about it, just because I'm really curious. I'm curious if it's changed over time or if I am really just that sensitive. I mean, I will say I can't really do mohair. I have to do Surrey alpaca as an alternative. So I kind of suspect that maybe I'm just a little bit more sensitive. But let me know your thoughts on that. So this would be my oldest languishing whip, and I am going to say that I'm going to rip this one out, just for the sake of having a plan moving forward, because I actually really don't like having unfinished projects just sitting there. It really bothers me. I want to have a plan. So I am either going to finish it or frog it. So we are frogging this guy. We're frogging the Corrie Sweater. That's whip number 1. All right, whip number 2. We are moving through the years, and this one, this one is from 2020. And if this isn't a sign of all things pandemic and early 2020, I don't know what is. So if you were in the knitting sphere during the early pandemic, then you might be familiar with all of the local yarn stores trying to do different programs to, I don't know, stay afloat really while nobody could go out and shop. And I can't remember what it was called, but it was something like a mystery skein along or something like that. A lot of local yarn stores were doing that, where you would pay an upfront cost, and then they would just go through your Ravelry page and come up with a yarn that they think you would like and just send it to you with some pattern recommendations. And, you know, at the time, obviously I wanted to support local stores, and it's actually really sad because the store that I did this with, they are no longer in business, and I think it was around the end of the pandemic that they had to shut down, which is quite a bummer. But anyway, if you're anything like me, I don't know, I think I'm a little bit picky. If you have been watching my previous videos, then you will already know this, especially if you watch my most and least worn knits video, my summer knits video, then you'll know that I can be a little bit nitpicky, and it doesn't always mean that I don't like something, but I do want to make sure it's exactly what I want. And because of this, I have learned through the years that I don't like to sign up for mystery things. I did Knit Crate for a while, also through the pandemic, and I still have a lot of that yarn because the colors weren't quite what I would have picked out, you know? And, you know, that's how it goes. I don't really do mystery things anymore because I know there's a big chance that I'm not gonna like it, and I would rather just put that money aside and go buy myself exactly what I want. And especially because it's no fault of the person who's sending it to you. They're picking based on what they think you're going to like, and they have no idea. So the mystery skein along, or whatever it was called, I signed up for. I was super excited. It came in the mail, and when I opened it, it was 2 balls of this yarn, which is Blue Moon Fiber Arts Marine Silk Sport, and that is a 51% silk, 29% merino, and 20% sea cell rayon. It's 324 yards, 100 grams. It is a sport weight, if I didn't already say. That is the label. And it's a beautiful yarn. Like, there's nothing wrong with the yarn at all. But it's not really my color. It's just a little too bright icy blue for me, and that's really the only issue here. Like, it's very, very pretty. And so for a while, especially at the time during the pandemic, I really didn't have much of a stash. So anytime I bought yarn, I immediately had a use for it because I don't like to hold on to too much. I like to be able to use it. I don't know, the more that a stash accumulates, the more I feel a little bit guilty, which, you know, I definitely have a stash now. Like, it's not out of control, but it's definitely more than it was during the pandemic. But I really wanted to kind of get this off the needles. So it's a sport weight yarn, it's a summer weight yarn, and it's, you know, what did I say? It's predominantly silk, and then a little bit of merino and rayon. So great for a summer top. And just around, I think it was right around the same time that I got this yarn, Locatelli had just put out her staple linen top, which is a really beautiful light tank top with this nice, I think it's just like a twisted rib, I guess, detail down the front panel. And it's a beautiful tank top. I thought it would be a really nice use of the yarn. She also calls for a sport weight, but it's 100% linen. So I decided to just go for it. And you start knitting it in a panel to where it was like the same amount of stitches I would be doing for a gauge swatch. So I just kind of dove right in. A little bit about the pattern. It comes in 10 sizes, which is phenomenal. It ranges from finished bust circumference of 28 inches to 68 inches. She recommends a US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needle. So I just dove right in and I started this guy. And after this, you know, technically my gauge swatch, but also my beginning of the staple linen top, two issues. One, even though I was thinking to myself that even though this isn't really my color, if it's just a tank top, maybe it won't be so bad. I don't know, it's like less coverage or something. I didn't love it on me, but the bigger issue was actually that if you've seen the staple linen top, and I'll definitely put some pictures up, the gauge is very loose. It's quite open. It's meant to be an airy, loose summer tank. And this did not give that at all. This is very much, it's a pretty thick gauge, and even though this is sport weight, I would say this is definitely closer to a DK, in my opinion. It's a pretty heavy sport weight. And I just felt like it was gonna be a little too heavy for that particular pattern because I really wanted it to be kind of loose and open gauge. So this was just another one that I lost steam on, and I wasn't really sure what to do. Like deep down, I think I knew I probably wasn't gonna wear this as is, but I think the bigger issue and why I never unraveled this was because I just don't know what to do with the yarn. And now that I'm sitting here talking about it, I think this might just be yarn that I go ahead and donate. I've got 2 balls of it. I might actually bring it to my knit group tomorrow and see if anybody wants it. Just because it's sitting in my stash and it's a beautiful yarn, but it's just not the yarn for me. But it deserves life. So yeah, I think this is going to be another one that I frog. I think just based on the amount of time these last 2 projects have been sitting in my closet is a pretty good indication that they're not getting a renewed life for me. So this guy's gonna go. I still really wanna knit the staple linen top. The reason I haven't is because I'd really like to do it in either 100% linen or 100% silk. I just don't wanna knit with those yarns because they just make my wrist a little sore, and I kind of dread knitting with 100% plant-based yarns, if I'm being honest. So staple linen top, this is a great pattern, just not the right yarn yet again. And so this guy is getting frogged. All right, moving right along to my next one, we will go to number 3. So now we're getting into more interesting projects where there are different reasons. Like the first 2 were very much like, oh, this wasn't the right yarn. I still like the project, but I need better yarn and then I'll do it again. The next ones moving forward are for a various degree of different reasons. So this next guy, let's see, this was around 2021, 2022. And this was, I think it was just during the winter, I was feeling a little bit chilly and I wanted something cozy. And again, you'll see a theme here. I was trying to knit through my stash. And so I have this old scarf, this really, really old scarf. And if I can find it, I'll show a picture, but I may not be able to find it. I don't know. For a while, I gave it to my cat Boink as a cat bed and it might be gone now. But I had this really old scarf that had all these different stripes on it, vertical and horizontal, and I just always loved it. And I was really inspired by that, and I thought it'd be fun to make a cowl. And digging through my stash, I was looking for yarns that would be about worsted to Aran weight, just a little bit thicker, plumper, something that would knit up really fast and you wouldn't need a ton of stitches. And so I just started, I drew up a chart and I just started working on this infinity cowl, which you can see here I've done the provisional cast on. And then I just started doing this kind of like grid checkered pattern. And I actually really like it a lot. The reason I stopped is because I tweaked the pattern a little bit and then I decided to actually update it a little bit, update the color scheme and do a little bit extra to the design. And I ended up doing a whole new pattern design with it that I worked with Blue Sky Fibers on. So that pattern actually will be coming out this fall/winter. So I just saw the product photos for it a couple weeks ago. I guess actually it was more like a month ago now, but so it's really exciting to see something you designed and then knit and then sent off being modeled by somebody else. That's really fun. And so I think, what are we in? We are like mid to late July right now. I think August or September is when they'll technically announce it because obviously they want to announce it at the beginning of the season. So it'll probably be coming out soon. So I'm not gonna say much about that pattern. While it is similar to this, there are some differences, and I want to leave the mystery until the pattern comes out, and then I'll chat about it more. But yeah, so this was just self-drafted, and I'll chat about what the yarn is, because actually this combination of yarns is really great. And this is in one of my more fun bags. This is a cat bag that I ordered from, let's see, so I have several knitting project bags of different cat patterns, of course, and I get them from, I want to say her Etsy shop is called Kitsch is the New Black. If I can find it, I'll link it below. She is fantastic. I've worked with her to like custom pick fabrics. She has all different types of bag designs, and she also does all of these really cute like notions pouches, which I love. I use them all the time. They're fantastic, and she's just so great. And she's based in the US. I think she's out of California. So anyway, the yarns that I used for this guy, this black yarn is, what is it? I wrote it down because I couldn't find the tag. This is just black yarn, so nothing super exciting, but it is Plymouth Yarn Homestead, and it's Aran weight. Ooh. And I'm dropping it. The red accent is actually some Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok worsted in the colorway Red Rock. And the white yarn is this guy, which if you've seen previous episodes where I've talked about my prismatic reflection sweaters, then this will be familiar to you because this is what I used for the fluffy yarn for the striped version. Not this one, but the actual sweater. This is Natural Fluff 4-ply, and that's a baby alpaca, merino, and Pima cotton. So the black is an Aran weight, the red is a worsted weight. They knit up about the same. And then this guy is, this is closer to like a sport weight, honestly, or a heavy fingering, and I just hold it double, and it seems to do a pretty good job because it's fluffy. And so the yarns actually feel pretty well balanced. And actually, I really like this. I think what's funny is, again, like I was saying, I was, stash busting, and the design that I had in my mind was really more blues and grays, and just based on the scarf that I had and the color scheme in that. But these were really the only yarns I had in similar weights, and so I just went with it. And it definitely felt a little bit like 90s in a way, but not in a bad way. So I actually really want to finish this. I should finish this for this winter so I can wear it, because it's really soft and it's going to be really warm. This one is actually like, it's a little bit thinner in terms of height. The pattern I designed, I did make it a little bit higher, and you've got options for length. But we'll talk about that more when it's actually out. And so, yeah, so this one, I will finish it. I don't know when I'm gonna finish it. Again, I probably will wait until that pattern is released just so I can actually chat about it in a little bit more depth. And so I'll probably pick this guy back up in another month or two, and hopefully I can finish this up for the winter season. So we are 3 down. We've got 2 frogs and 1 finish. So, all right, it's not terrible. Okay, this next one is a saga, and I gotta move some things so we can prepare ourselves, because this has been a journey, and it will continue to be a journey. And yeah, let's just go right into it. Why don't we? There's so many pieces here. It's just a mess. Oh my God. So this is a project that I started in 2022. We were still, 2022, it was still sort of pandemic mode. My husband was working from home full time still at that point. And my husband doesn't wear a lot of like knitted sweaters because he also runs pretty warm. Like socks are great, he'll wear them all day long, but big heavy sweaters he doesn't typically wear. But being at home, is a little bit different. You've got that need to be cozy. He saw all the sweaters I was knitting myself, and we had just kind of chatted once, and I asked him, like, would you ever want me to knit you something just for around the house, like a cardigan or something. And he got really excited about that idea. And so we went on a deep, deep Ravelry dive, and I set all the parameters, and I told him, like, let's just scroll through and you pick out everything that appeals to you. And he did not pick a single simple item. Oh my God, the more cables, the more details, he really wanted the complicated cabled sweaters. And I was shocked because he doesn't own a single cabled item, and I didn't think he was the kind of guy who would wear all over cabled, like grandpa cardigan, shawl collar, the whole deal. I will show pictures of this sweater. He decided that what he really wanted more than anything was the Timberline Cardigan by Jared Flood. And this is a pattern that Jared Flood did for Brooklyn Tweed. And I don't know, this is the first men's garment I have knit, but it only comes in 4 sizes, which seems crazy to me. Like, tell me if I'm wrong, but that seems crazy. So the size range is 43 3/4 inches in diameter up to 57 inches in diameter, which seems really small, especially for guys. Yeah, I couldn't find anything on ease. I'm sure it's in there, but I should also mention that this pattern is 28 pages. 28 pages. And I actually pulled out all the pages with pictures, and it's still 28 pages. I have so many Post-it notes on here with measurements I had to do. Oh, okay. All right. So let's get into the details, and then I can really just go down the rabbit hole that is this sweater. So first off, at first I looked at the yarn that they recommended, which is obviously Brooklyn Tweed, and for his size, this thing was going to be like $450, which I was like, no way are we spending that much money on yarn for a sweater you may or may not wear, because I'm still not convinced. And so we ended up going with Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok worsted because it's just a great all-around worsted yarn. It's got a nice round quality, which works really well with cabling, and it's much more budget friendly. It was still, don't get me wrong, it was still pricey, but it was like less than half of what we were expecting to spend. So very great. And I also got extra yardage just because that'll go into my next gripe, which is this gripe is not with the pattern at all, but I really struggled to meet gauge. Like, I could not meet gauge no matter what I did. I tried multiple needle sizes and I was just always a little bit off. So I ended up going with the 3rd size to match my gauge issues. And it's been so long now, I don't remember if my gauge was too large or too small and if the size was too large or too small. But basically, I adapted the size to work with my gauge. I did the math, and it should measure out to fit him in the end. Should, hypothetically, hoping everything blocks the same, and I don't know. So it's already starting out dicey, shall we say. The recommended needles for this are, you cast on with US 4, which is 3.5 millimeters. Then you go up to a US 5, which is 3.75 millimeters, and then you can also use a 7, which is 4.5 millimeters. I think it just depends on the different sections. I think some of that sizing might be for the shawl collar. But I think the main body is in US 7, which is 4.5 millimeters. But I had to, yes, okay, I went down to a US 6, which is 4 millimeters, to get sort of close to gauge. And I think that my gauge was still, I don't know how off it is. I should actually remeasure it and see. I think I was afraid to at that point. So I went on my merry way. I got a whole bunch of Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok worsted in the color October Sky, and I start knitting. So I now have, let's see. Okay. So we've got both sleeves. Let's see if you can see the cabling in that. But yeah, so that's the cabling. Everything is seamed. So you start with each sleeve. And this was also where I got a little bit nervous. So I started, I started the first sleeve and I worked it most of the way, and then I blocked it. And once I blocked it, it ended up lengthening more than I expected, which, you know, cabling, big sleeve meant to happen, which meant that it was too long for him. So then I had to rip it out and redo it. And then I reblocked it. Now it fits him fine. I mean, obviously we are trying this on. He's literally trying it on like this. And so we're just hoping, we're hoping that it fits right. I mean, I've taken measurements and compared it to other items he has, but again, he doesn't really have any cardigans. So we're just basing it off of long sleeve t-shirts and things that he's wearing. So I finished this sleeve, blocked it, looks great. Finished the second sleeve. This is actually still unblocked. I actually left them because I thought it was a really fun demonstration of showing how different cables look, blocked versus unblocked. So this is blocked, this is unblocked, and look at how different the texture looks on that. It's so much softer once it blocks out. It's much more detailed on this, which I actually really like the way this looks, how chunky it is, but you know, obviously this looks like a typical soft cable cardigan, I guess. I don't know. So I did the first sleeve and then I put it away for a while, and then I got some more steam, and so I did the second sleeve. I ended up actually knocking out the second sleeve quicker. Pro tip, if you are doing this pattern or any similar patterns where it's not only all over cabled, but every row has different cables, and each row has, it's all different cables. So it's not like you're doing the same cables over and over again. There are 10, I'm gonna hold this up. There are 10 different cables that you're doing. And I colored these in with colored pencils because before I did that, I was looking at the chart, which I'm not gonna show the chart because I don't wanna give anything away. It's a paid for pattern. I spent so much time referring back to my legend for each stitch, each cable stitch, that it was taking me so long. So finally, like halfway through the first sleeve, I decided to color everything in, and that made a huge difference. So I could just be like, okay, this is the dark blue cable, this is the light blue cable, and go from there. And things started to move a little bit quicker, but you're cabling every other row, and then the other rows you're knitting and purling, and it's different per each row just based on the way the motif looks. And it's funny because this pattern is a beautiful, gorgeous pattern, but I do not enjoy knitting it at all. I just really don't like knitting it because I can't pay attention to anything else. Anytime I would make a mistake or do the wrong cable. And so you just really have to pay a lot of attention. And not just that, one of my friends who works at the local yarn store here, she was also knitting this for her husband. I think she actually did finish it, but we were kind of commiserating on the fact that it feels like it might be a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Like when I say 28 pages, I mean like small text, 2 columns, so much. And every time I would get started on this, I would look at how far I still had to go, and I would just lose all my steam. It's the craziest thing because I don't normally have this issue ever, but with this pattern, I just have really not enjoyed it. Like I dread working on it, but I really want to finish this for Thomas because I know he's so excited about it. And like I said, I started this in 2022. I started this in the early fall, I think, of 2022 with the goal of getting this to him by Christmas. Didn't happen. Then my goal was to get it to him by last Thanksgiving. That didn't happen. So here we are. We are in July of 2024, and I make no more promises. This, as you can see, is the body panel that I have started. You have to separate this part out, and then you do this part, but then you don't just, these parts that I've separated are for the shawl collar, which that makes sense, like the button band. But then there's some other really funky construction that happens up above. And it feels like maybe there could have been an easier way to do that. I mean, I think this will be tailored really well. I just also think that part of the reason why I'm a little bit more hesitant about this than most is because, well, one, each row takes forever. Like, this is such a slow moving project because, like I said, there's tons of different cabling that you're doing. It's not the most predictable, so you're constantly having to refer to the chart. There are also 4 or 5 different charts that you have to flip through as you're working through it. And it changes order because you're working flat, so you have to like reorder it each time. So it takes a lot of time to knit this up. And I'm also still nervous that it may not fit him great. Part of my concern too was looking at all the finished photos, and it was fitting a lot of people pretty large, which I get just because I think just the general nature of an all over cable garment, it stretches a lot more than you might anticipate. And so I'm just very nervous about this. And so here it sits 2 years in, but I want to finish this for him. I don't want to frog it. He has stopped asking about it because he doesn't want me to feel pressure. I think he actually feels quite guilty now, which I feel really bad about. I don't want him to feel guilty about this. And actually, I have to say, I'm remembering now, I think we're at like 2 years on the dot. So Thomas's birthday is this upcoming Sunday. I believe that when we picked this yarn and pattern out, it was because I was doing it as a birthday present for him. But I think we went to the yarn store on or around his birthday in 2022. Oops. Okay, so yeah, sorry, I have hair in my face, but I want to finish this for him. My friend has joked that I should just like sneak this over on her front porch and she'll just finish it for me, because I think at this point she's like, are you ever gonna do it? What she's recommended, which I actually think is a great idea, is to just go in and maybe do like a row or 2 a day. And like, instead of looking at it as this giant overwhelming project that you're gonna pick up and it's gonna be months of work and hours, just go in once a day, pick it up in the morning, have your coffee, do 1 row, maybe do 2 rows, put it away. Kind of like with an Advent sock that you would do for like the month of December. And I think that is a great idea. So I have still found a million excuses as to why I can't do that right now, because, you know, I've got patterns I'm designing and I've got a summer top I have to knit, but I think I should do that because he deserves this cardigan, and I really just want to see this out of my stash because I still have so many balls of this yarn. It's just sitting in the plastic in a bag, just staring at me and making me feel guilty every time. So let me just hold it up for you. This is the very, very small amount I've done on the body. And then these are the sleeves. Have you knit the Timberline cardigan? And if so, what are your thoughts? I'd love some encouragement because anybody I've talked to who looked at it or attempted to start it has felt the same as me, and I don't think that's helped my mood. But yeah, I should finish this one. So this is not going to be a frog, but this is also one where I'm just not promising anything. And also, oh man, men's sweaters, there's a lot more stitches. It's a lot more stitches. So it's going back in. This is going in another one of my Kitsch is the New Black project bags, which I love. Also cats, super adorable. And this won't be going quite as deep in the closet. It sits far enough forward so I can see it and be reminded that I really need to pick this up and just finish it. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just going to knit a little bit on it. I'm not even gonna say every day because I don't know. Do you ever struggle with this where you're just not motivated to work on something, but you really want to? And if so, do you have tips or techniques that you use to kind of motivate you? Because I need those. I need those. Maybe I just need to set a deadline for myself. I don't know, but we'll see. So that will be finished someday, one day. All right, so we only have one more, which is pretty good. I mean, there were a couple more in here than I thought. I really only thought I had like 2 works in progress that were languishing, but you know, I had 5. This one is another one that it just needed to sit in timeout for a little bit so I could stew. This last one, this is not technically based off of a pattern either, but it is from a chart motif that from a book. So these are so cute. These are some Viking socks. Again, a project for Thomas. Poor guy. I feel like there have been some struggles with some of the things I've been knitting him. So I got this book, 150 Scandinavian Motifs by Mary Jane Mucklestone. And I immediately came across, let me see if I can show this without giving away the chart. As I was flipping through it, I found this guy. And when I saw it, I showed it to Thomas and he was immediately like, oh, I love that. He's super into like Viking lore and all of that history. And I knew he would love a pair of socks with that. So I just decided to, I just use like the vanilla sock recipe, nothing special. And for him, I typically do 72 stitches and I use a US 1 needle, which is 2.25 millimeters. Now, if you have knit colorwork socks, then you know that your gauge changes with colorwork socks and you should always go up a needle size. But I wasn't thinking. It's so funny, like you just get in these modes where I think the longer you've been knitting, the more overconfident you get, where you don't even plan or think about it because you're like, I know what I'm doing. I know what this is going to be. I know how the gauge is going to go. I've been knitting colorwork socks for the last several months and it's fine. But in that moment, I had that lapse of judgment where I just completely forgot to go up a needle size. And even better to this story, I decided to knit them 2 at a time. Because of course I did. Because why would you go through this and just knit 1 when you can knock them out, do 2 at a time, and then you'll have the socks done in no time? So I got to the same point on both of them where I wanted him to try it on to see how much longer I needed to make it. So I decided to go ahead and put in an afterthought heel in this guy just to make sure so he could try it on and figure out how much longer to make it. And he could barely even get the thing on his foot, which is not a surprise because it's all over color work, which means it's a bit tighter than a typical 72 stitch stockinette sock would be. It's my own fault. I knew better, wasn't thinking, plowed through it, and immediately lost all steam. So, and it's just hilarious. It's hilarious that I did this. It's hilarious that these are basically almost done. And I just, even thinking about it now, it's just like, why did you do that? What were you thinking? I should mention, I started these in 2023. So I just did these last year. I was on a sock kick. I was knitting socks like crazy. And after I found the pattern in this book, he and I went to the yarn store again. And the funny thing is this was like my first active piece to like make up for the fact that the cardigan wasn't gonna happen. I basically told him that. I was like, you know, I don't know about this cardigan, so why don't we pick out some socks for you? And he was so excited. So we picked out all the colors. This is all Cascade Heritage. Yeah, Cascade Heritage fingering weight. It's 75/25. And this is the first time I'd actually worked with it. And while I haven't actually worn the socks yet, it's a really nice sock yarn to knit with. Like I really enjoyed it. I think the color is really great on it. It's just really nice. Like I really like the way it looks. It feels very sturdy. It seems like kind of a workhorse sock yarn. And the colors that we did, let's see. So we've got denim, anise, and then we've got camel and limestone. And love the colors. I think when these socks are done, they're going to be so great. But I hit that point. I had done so much work on it, and you know, there's bits where there's 3 colors you're holding in one, and it was just a lot of, I don't know, by the time I realized it wasn't gonna fit him, I was just so dejected. I was like, how do I have 2 projects for him right now that are nowhere near completion, and this one I have to start completely from scratch? And it just completely demotivated me. And I tried it on, and this technically fits me, actually, which, you know, go figure. The heel is a little bit big because, again, I made the heel to his size. So what I was thinking at first was that I will just make these for me and then I'll knit him a pair with the rest. But it turns out that I won't actually have enough of this denim yarn to do a full pair for him. And that's when I completely gave up. That's when I was like, nope. I don't want to buy more yarn. I'm not doing it, whatever. This is so dumb. And I just put it away and I completely left it alone. And it's now been probably close to a year, maybe like 8 months. I'm not entirely sure when I started this. It was probably the summer or fall of last year. So it's not quite a year. But I brought these out today. I tried them on again and they actually fit me quite great. And so I have a plan and I feel good about it. I am just going to rip this heel out and I'm going to knit a slightly smaller heel for my foot. And these are going to be for me. So I'm gonna have some Viking socks. But I'm going to also just go to the store and get I think I just need another ball of denim. I think I have enough of everything else because, you know, I didn't actually use much. And that's fine, right? It's one single ball of yarn, one skein of yarn. I'm just gonna go to the store, get a skein of denim, and I'm gonna knit him a matching pair. And then we're going to have matching Viking socks. And you know, I kind of wish that I had done this video a couple of weeks ago because it would have been great to be able to do this for his birthday, but I'm thinking about this and his birthday is Sunday. I've got time. I've got a few days. Yarn store's not open today, but they're open tomorrow. So I think I might go to the yarn store and try and get this yarn and just get his started. I think the other thing that I was a little bit unsure of is I don't think I've actually knit him a pair of colorwork socks before. I've knit him several other pairs of socks. I've done cables and I've done stockinette, but I've never done colorwork for him. And I know what works for me. And if I just go up one needle size, that's typically enough. It's a US 1.5, which I need to look up what that is. So a US 1.5 is 2.5 millimeters. So normally when I bump up to that size, then that's enough to fit me comfortably with my normal sock numbers. But I'm nervous that I'm going to do that and it'll still be tight on him. I don't know why I'm nervous about that, but I am. But I think I might go ahead and just start it and see. My other option was that maybe I would bump up to a US 2, which I don't have the conversion for off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but that would be the next size up, which would be two sizes up from what I would normally do. But I feel like that might be too much. I feel like that might be overkill. So I think I might, yeah, I think this is my plan. My plan is I'm gonna go to the yarn store tomorrow. I'm gonna hope that they still carry the denim, which they probably will, because it's Cascade Heritage, and that's a pretty like solid yarn. A lot of places have it. And I'm just gonna do it in the US 1.5, 2.5 millimeter needle, and it shouldn't take me long. And then I can have him try it on, and that'll be his birthday gift, is that he will get his Viking socks. And then once his are done, then I will finish mine and we will have a matching pair. And maybe by next week, we can wear our matching Viking socks. Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. I've said it on the video, so now that means you have to hold me to it. Oh, okay. So we're doing it. We're making promises on YouTube. This is how we roll now. So My final project, we will be finishing, not frogging, and apparently adding on a second pair. So yeah, that concludes my languishing works in progress. Thank you for watching all of these. I feel like even just chatting about it and knowing that you guys are listening and thinking about what you might say or what you're thinking has kind of helped with the, with the gears turning a little bit and making me a little bit more motivated to finish some of these, giving me kind of an idea of what I'm gonna do with yarn that deep down I know I just don't want anymore. And I feel a lot better about this. So I think that again, no promises on what's gonna happen with that cardigan. That's gonna be here for a while, but eventually one day it will be done. And I have a plan for my socks. Well, Thomas's socks, the Viking socks. And that's good enough for me. So thank you so much for watching. Next week, I should be back to a normal podcast video. But yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, you can find me at meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. I am meeshyfrazz@gmail.com. And then you can also find my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.